Family Guy. I should point this out. I've only seen maybe 3 episodes of The Simpsons, so I can't put The Simpsons on this list. And I know what you're thinking. You haven't seen The Simpsons. Do you live under a rock? Here's the thing. I know all the characters. I've seen The Simpsons movie maybe hundreds of times. I know it's declared by almost everybody on the planet that it's one of the greatest television sitcoms, television shows of all time, one of the greatest cartoons of all time. I know how big of an impact it's had. But I can't put it on here because I haven't seen enough of the show, okay? So the reason why I bring that up is because, yeah, there are a lot of connections between The Simpsons and Family Guy. A lot of people say it's the same thing. And in my defense, it really isn't, because from what I've seen in The Simpsons and what I've seen in Family Guy, it's very different. There are a lot of similarities in it, but it is different. By the way, I am so looking forward to that crossover next week. I am so looking forward to it. I've been waiting for that for a long time. Anyway, Family Guy, this was a show that I started watching, much like 8 Simple Rules. I started watching this show a couple of years ago, and I was laughing harder than I ever did in my life. This was the funniest, one of the funniest shows I had ever seen, and I know that probably says a lot about, you know, my toilet humor and what I find funny, but I've already declared South Park as one of the greatest shows ever, so, and compared to South Park, this show is a lot cleaner than South Park is, okay? So, I really like this show. I do. I love, if it's gonna be a Stewie episode, I have to sit and watch it. I could be in the middle of doing something for a class, I could be in the middle of doing something like 10 times more important. I will stop whatever I'm doing and sit down and watch it. Even if it's a Stewie episode, I have to. If it's a Brian and Stewie episode, I have to. This show, every time Peter comes out, the thing I love most about this show are the fourth wall jokes and, of course, the cutaway jokes, which is something that I've never really seen in a show. Like, even when I first started watching the show, that was something I hadn't seen before. Every time they did a cutaway joke, I laughed so hard to it. And watching the South Park episode now, when they make fun of that for Family Guy, that was hilarious, because there's a scene in the South Park episode, I know I'm going off topic for a little bit, but there's a scene in the South Park episode where Cartman goes into Fox, and they show you how they come up with a cutaway joke for Family Guy by having the seals move those balls or something. Now that I've seen Family Guy, that is so funny, what they did on South Park and how Family Guy writes their jokes and stuff. But nevertheless, it was still absolutely hilarious. I love this show. This made me a Seth MacFarlane fan. I loved Ted. I liked A Million Ways to Die in the West. I'm interested in seeing Ted 2. I can't wait to see that. I'm a huge Seth MacFarlane fan, and it's all because of Family Guy. I love Family Guy so much. Like, I watch it all the time. I'm looking forward to that Simpsons crossover. If you haven't seen Family Guy, check it out. My dad, who hates cartoons, I've made him watch an episode or two, and he does laugh. He doesn't like it, but he's laughed at it, you know, when he watches it. He does laugh from time to time. Sometimes I show him some jokes he'll understand. There's this one show that I really, really love, this one episode that keeps coming to mind. It's the one where, it was a couple seasons ago, the one where they go to the Teen Choice Awards, and they have that opening, and Brian and they say, like, welcome Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, and Brian's watching that, and he goes, I'll tell you, every time I recognize fewer and fewer names, and they're naming all these fake celebrity names, and I showed my sister this. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm showing my sister this, and you see all these girls ripping their hair out, and peeing, and pulling their eyes out of their sockets, and now you hear, and I'm gonna curse for a second here, excuse my language, and you hear the announcer go, now everybody scream like fucking retards for your host, P-hole Skin, or whatever the guy's name was, I don't know. And then you have this really, really old guy who is not up to the times. He comes out to announce the first winner, and he walks up, and my sister and I are pissing ourselves laughing. We're watching this, and the guy goes, it's entirely too loud in here. Settle down. There's no accountability anymore. I have diabetes. Shut up. And then you have this band come over, and they're singing a really shitty metal song, and he's like, I have to put a stop to this. So he gets his shotgun and he's shooting up the place. My sister and I must have we must have hit the rewind button on that at least 5 or 6 times, and we laughed harder and harder every time we watched it. It's just the funniest shit ever. I don't know what episode that is, but if you ever watch it, like, just type in Family Guy Teen Choice Award. That scene, if you haven't seen that yet, that's the funniest for me. That's like my favorite moment in the show. One of my favorites. So yeah, Family Guy, really, really great. Next one. Cheers. This is a show I just started watching sometime last year. And I have to say, why didn't I watch this show sooner? It's on Netflix, and I started watching it, and it's just the whole relationship between Ted Danson and Shelley Long cracks me up every time. In a lot of those episodes, it's just so funny how they play off one another, how they play these mind games. I love every one of these characters, and I hate to admit it, but I stopped watching the show after season 7, I think. Because after Shelley Long left the show right after the 5th season, I will admit it wasn't the same show after that once they got, oh my god, what's her name? Kirstie Alley? Yeah, once they got her in the show, I'm not saying, here's the thing. The show didn't stop being funny. It was still funny, okay? So give them credit for that. It was still funny, at least for my taste. Was it the same show as it used to be? No, it wasn't. But you know what? It's kind of a good thing that they did go with that, because Shelley Long left the show. She was tired of doing it. She left. And it's probably a good thing that she did, because if they kept... Because they had been doing that for 5 years at that point, like the whole Sam and Diane relationship. By the time she left the show, it was getting old. And when season 6 came along and they got Kirstie Alley in the show, it was kind of a refreshing thing. I mean, we still had the same characters and everything, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same kind of show. You know what I mean? The episodes with Coach are hilarious, which is the first 2-3 seasons at least. The ones with Woody Harrelson are okay. I kind of like his character. Norm, almost everything Norm says is hilarious. Yeah, him, what's her name? What's it? Rhea Perlman. That's it. As Carla, she's hilarious. I love, oh my god, it's been a while since I've seen this show. I'm forgetting some of the characters' names. What's his name? Cliff. Yeah, every time he comes in and he talks to either Norm or Frasier, that's always hilarious. My favorite episode of Cheers, I would have to say, it was in the 5th season, the last season with Shelley Long. It was the one where he plays Dr. Weinstein, when Sam plays Dr. Weinstein. Okay, I'll give you the little history in case you guys haven't. If you guys haven't seen this episode, go on Netflix, check it out. Check this episode out. It's in the 5th season. In this episode, now here's the thing, Shelley Long as Diane Chambers is so pretentious and thinks she knows everything. She's like this artsy kind of person, and Sam used to be, you know, a baseball player. You know, she thinks like he's not up to her class, but yet they still like each other. So anyway, she says that she finally got reservations for this restaurant, which is very hard to get a reservation there. It's like a 6-month waiting period to get a reservation. And she kind of rubs it in Sam's face that, oh, I have a reservation and you don't. So Sam calls up the restaurant impersonating a doctor, a very famous doctor here, and he steals Diane's table with his date. So Diane shows up with her date all pissed off that he got this table, and she tries to lure him out of the restaurant by saying like, oh, this person's having a heart attack, doctor, you better go help him. And she goes, he's having chest pains, doctor. And because it's Sam, he doesn't know anything. He looks over at Diane and he says, okay, well, why don't you tie them and see how far apart they are? His chest pains. And he's like, sir, he's having trouble with it. And he's like, my dinner's getting cold. I can't do it right now. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, that show... I will say it did run a little too long. I mean, 11 seasons, that's a long, long time for a show. I mean, I was getting bored halfway through season 7, and I don't think I even finished the 7th season yet. I mean, I've seen the finale. I know what happens in the finale, and I could have just skipped to the finale and watched that, and it was a great finale. Really good final episode. But in my opinion, I'm really glad I waited to do this, because that is a really good show. It's one of my favorite shows. Cheers, where everybody knows your name. The Wonder Years. I remember watching this show when I was a little kid. It would come on every Friday night. I remember the Brady Bunch was on Monday night, I Love Lucy was Tuesday, Jeffersons was Wednesday, Happy Days was Thursday, and Wonder Years was Friday nights. Now, I wasn't a big fan of this show until I started watching it on YouTube around 2007, 2008, when I was in high school. And I was hooked from the pilot. It's a show about a young boy going through adolescence as a kid and as a teenager growing up in the late 60s and early 70s. And he has a best friend and his family and the girl next door, the love of his life. But it's told by the older version of him, you know? And I have to say, and I recently found this out, I didn't know this, if it wasn't for the movie A Christmas Story, this show would not exist. That film was the inspiration for the Wonder Years. So I had no idea. I didn't know that, but I read that online. That's a true story. Now, this show has not been released on DVD. Why? I found out because of the music copyrights. Because this show has won Emmys. This is declared as one of the greatest shows in television history. It's really a mega show. And I think it's the only popular show that hasn't been released on DVD yet, or on Blu-ray, because of all the music copywriting. Because there's a lot of, 60s and 70s really popular songs in the show. So they can't get it because of the copyright. But it's on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix. I don't know. Well, I have them on DVD. I have all the episodes recorded on DVD, so I'm good. But if you guys want to check this out, I think it might still be on Netflix. Yeah, I think it's still on Netflix. If you guys have a chance, check this show out. It's a really good show. I love any of the episodes between Kevin and Winnie. Those are my all-time favorite episodes. I love watching that relationship and seeing where it's going to go. Sometimes they get together, sometimes they break up, then they get back together again, and then they're friends, and what does this all mean, and heartbreak, and denial, and all this stuff, and it's a really good connection story for that. And also, I love I love the humor in this show. It's a drama, much like the Defenders. It's a drama mixed with comedy, but without all the aside from all the court and lawyer stuff, it's replaced with stuff that when you watch it, you're like, wow, I did that as a kid. How did they know that? There's a lot of stuff that you watch in that show. Like, wow, I had a teacher just like that. I remember doing something like this in high school. I remember going through that and wondering what that all meant as a kid. I wondered what this was. There's actually an episode that I really, really like. It's in the first season. The whole episode is Kevin sitting by the telephone in his kitchen, and he's contemplating whether or not to call this girl up that he really likes and ask her out. And the whole episode is that, him sitting by the phone and coming up with all these visions in his mind of what could happen. Will she laugh at me? Will she tell her friends? Will I show up in my underwear in class or whatever? All these things that you probably thought of as a kid when you got the courage to talk to someone, especially someone you really liked. And it's episodes like that I really, really can connect with and really enjoy. And you don't see that in a show like this. I mean, this was the late 80s, early 90s is when this show ran. And it's a really good show. There's a lot of great music in it, because I'm a fan of the 60s and 70s music. I love that stuff, so it's already good for me. But I love these characters. I love what they go through. It's a really, really good show, and it's a really good family show, I will say. I mean, it's not like for little kids or anything, but it's a good show to keep an eye out for. You know, like don't forget a show like that. It's a really good. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I strongly recommend you watch the show. You will be hooked on this show from the pilot, I think. Like, watch the pilot and watch this show as it progresses. It just gets better and better as it goes on. And it's a really... I have nothing else to say about it. The Wonder Years, I love it. I love that show.